A long December. It's been a long December, said Rosalind. A long year. Still, there's reason to believe that this year will be better than the last, replied Peter. He raised his glass to his old friend and colleague, and they chinked them together. The muted sounds of what was technically their retirement party drifted in from the other room. The Imperial Archivist had insisted on holding a party to celebrate half the department shifting to support the prognosticator's office. When Rosalind and Peter had both separately, and without being aware of the other's plans, announced their retirement, he'd insisted on having one party to celebrate 3 partings. Given the recent troubles, it wasn't a particularly jolly party, and nobody was sad to be missing it. Well, it'll be better for yous two at least. The Imperial Archivist had been in a sour mood all week, and the party had done nothing to lighten his mood. You're well out of it. Don't be like that, began Rosalind, a warning note in her voice. She'd never had any patience for Leonatus's moods, and she wasn't about to start now she was retiring. It's fine, he waved her away. I'm surprised you stayed as long as you did. I'd not have blamed either of yous if you'd have gone after... well, you know, after. He trailed off and raised his mug. To absent friends, he said. A mumbled chorus of to absent friends rippled around the room, and then an awkward silence fell. The other guests busied themselves with their plates or their drinks. None of the younger ones had been present during that murderous spring and summer of 379YE, when the Eternals of the Whisper Gallery had tried to bring its long rivalry with the Department of Historical Research to a decisive close. None of them, including Rosalind and Peter, knew why they were here, why the Imperial Archivist had asked them to join him in the private dining room that was mostly these days used for document storage. Octavia resented the fact that these kind of affairs, not that they happened often at the department, dragged her away from her studies. Marco Swarsbane just wanted to be back out in the field, poking around old ruins and haunted libraries. Snowstorm Henk hated them because he was always happiest when he had a mystery to unravel, or an obscure reference to chase up. Anyway, Leonatus's voice was jovial again, and there was an edge to it. I suppose we should get down to before some bastard comes in to find out we've disappeared off to. I've asked yous all here, 'cause I'll have a big meeting with some bloody Dornishmen in the morning. Before I go in there, there's 2 questions I want answering, and you're the best people I can think of to help me answer them. People shuffled in their seats, sat up. Even Octavia stopped doing mental mathematical exercises and paid attention. So, he looked around, studying them each in turn. He took a deep draught from his mug, emptying it, and slapped it down on the table for emphasis. The question is, should we shut down the Department of Historical Research? There was a lot of blinking and frowning. Can you do that? Asked Snowstorm Henk. Aye, but he did not elaborate. That brings me to my second, and rather more pressing question. He rested his elbows on the table and clasped his hands together, as if he were about to assign one of them a research project. He looked over at Henk, Octavia, and Marco in turn, holding their gaze for a moment. And when he spoke, it was through gritted teeth. What the fuck are we going to do about the Whisper Gallery? Overview. At the winter solstice, the Imperial Senate chose to take advantage of an opportunity offered by the consecration of the walls of Holberg to retrain civil servants from the Department of Historical Research as prognosticators, capable of performing appraisals. Unfortunately, following a different opportunity in which members of the department were committed to collecting and organising information about the Valorn to support the expansion of the Great Library of Hacanian, this left nobody to actually perform historical research. After the summit, it became apparent that the sinister Eternals of the Whisper Gallery have resumed their campaign of destruction and murder, aimed at silencing the department's scholars and researchers. Worse, they had expanded their interests to include a number of other individuals and organisations using mortal agents armed with blades and burning oil to try and put a stop to the practice they describe as murdering secrets. In fact, 3 of the most egregious attacks took place about the same time the magicians of the Conclave were attempting diplomacy with representatives of the Night Eternals. Even as the Archmage of Night strove to reason with them, their agents attempted to murder the Imperial Archivist and set fire to both the Lepidian University and the Great Library of Hacanian. They were stopped, but it seems they've extended their attentions beyond just the department. While civil servants are protected, it is increasingly not feasible to protect every scholar in the Empire. The future of the Historical Research Department is in doubt. Indeed, if the Whisper Gallery continue to expand their operations in the Empire, the very future Imperial scholarship may be in danger as well. A long year. The historical research commissioned by Vaclav Milonov-Kosti will take place. The Senate must consider whether it wants the department to continue to support the Great Library of Acanian or not. I'm not sentimental, but when a talented scholar says to me he'll quit and go and join the War Scouts if I don't let him research the names of his people's heroes, I shut up and listen. Not least because, given his history, the lad'll last 5 minutes as a War Scout before he gets caught by the Jotun, and I don't want that on my conscience. Imperial Archivist. During the autumn equinox last year, the curmudgeonly Imperial Archivist proposed that his department could help collect information about the Valorn. This reduced the number of historical research proposals that could be researched by one until that research was complete. The Great Library will not even be able to begin the research until the library is built, and the work will not be completed until the start of the autumn equinox. Fortunately, thanks to the support of the League and the scholars of Highguard, as well as information recovered from Brokeliand, the actual research itself should take only 6 months. This would leave the Empire unable to commission the department to perform historical research until the spring equinox 386 YE. When the Imperial Archivist made his offer, the Empire could commission 2 teams of researchers at a time. That has changed now. Rather than withdraw support from the Great Library of Acanian, especially given the import of the work being done there to the entire Empire, Leonatus intends to ensure that there is still at least some researchers available at all times. The Imperial Orc scholar, Snowstorm Henk in particular, has no real interest in the Valorn. He has insisted on being given permission to perform the historical research at the winter solstice, commissioned by the Minister of Historical Research, to explore the identities and fates of the orcs who guarded the tomb of Emperor Araz, arguing that he wasn't really helping to collate Valorn research anyway. Leonatus has agreed, meaning that the report will go ahead as requested. With the reduction in resources, however, the Imperial Archivist is very clear that they cannot continue to fully support the Great Library of Acanian project, and still have the capacity to perform historical research. The offer to support the Great Library was made when the situation was very different. After a lot of frank discussions with other members of the department, he believes he can operate a skeleton crew and still provide some aid to assembling the Navarre archives. This will mean the investigation on the Valorn will instead conclude at the summer solstice 386 YE, still 3 months earlier than it would have without their help, but that the department is still able to provide one opportunity for historical research each season during the process. Hold on to these moments. The Department of Historical Research can no longer support 3 imperial titles. An administrative motion has been raised to determine who will use the power to direct the future of the department. The reality is we've been struggling, but you can't quote me on that. Afore we lost so many good people, we'd kept up without anyone wanted to throw at us. Now, we've been running ourselves ragged and it has to stop. It's no wonder folk would rather take their chances at that Axos library than work here. We need time to catch a breath, or we're all gonna drown. Imperial Archivist. There are other matters to consider, which will require the Senate to make decisions about the future of the historical research. There are currently 3 imperial titles who can instruct the Department of Historical Research to perform research on their behalf: the Minister of Historical Research, the Advisor on the Valorn, and the Imperial Advisor for the Feni. After assessing the new arrangements and meeting with the Auditor of the Imperial Treasury, Gerard Lassalle, Leonatus the Scribe is clear that the department can only support one of these 3. The staff are simply spread too thin, and the number of civil servants keen to join the department has pretty much dried up over the last 2 or 3 years. Recruitment is possible, but it will take time and require careful handling. That being the case, regretfully, the Imperial Archivist is asking the Senate to choose one of the 3 titles that can currently instruct the department to undertake historical research on their behalf. The other 2 will lose that power. The Imperial Senate itself will still have the power to commission its own research, of course. The Imperial Archivist has asked for an administrative motion to be raised during the first Senate session on the Saturday of the spring equinox. This will allow the senators to decide which of the 3 titles will keep the power and which of them will lose it. They may even decide to strip the power from all 3 titles voting for none of the above, returning it to the sole purview of the Senate. If no clear decision is reached, none of the titles will be able to commission historical research until the deadlock is broken through a Senate motion. Unlike a normal administrative motion, the Imperial Archivist has requested that the Speaker of the Senate raise this motion at the start of the second session on Saturday, the evening session, rather than at the Friday evening session. This is to give the senators sufficient time to discuss the issue and for the 3 affected titles to share their own opinions on the matter. Consequently, the Office of the Speaker has requested that the 3 affected title holders come to speak with them at the Hub on Friday evening to sort out how best to proceed. They also ask that no Senate motions or announcements that instruct the department to perform historical research be submitted until the matter is resolved, but this is a polite request instead of any hard and fast rule. Whatever the outcome, unless the situation changes, the Senate will only be able to maintain one title at a time with the power to direct the Department of Historical Research. This will not affect the Lepideian librarian. Their power comes from dedicated scholars who are not part of the department and already do not count against the limited number of commissions. A lot of oysters. The Senate could remove the power from all 3 titles and auction the right to direct the Department of Historical Research. In this case, the Senate would lose the power to direct historical research itself. As long as everyone understands that they don't own actual words, just the right to tell us what to write about, everything will be fine. We're reputable scholars, not spies, LaSalle. We're not in the business of keeping secrets. Gerard LaSalle has an alternative proposal for the Senate to consider, however. They may choose to use the administrative motion requested by the Imperial Archivist to strip the ability to perform historical research from all 3 titles by selecting none of the above. If they did this, then it would be possible to use a Senate motion to redefine the relationship with historical research. The ability to direct the department could become a commodity to be purchased through the Imperial Bourse. The research would still become public knowledge after the fact, but any Imperial citizen prepared to pay would gain the ability to determine what was researched. In the same manner as an Imperial wayleave, the ability to announce historical research would be auctioned and any funds raised would go into the Imperial Treasury. In this case, as with commissions, the Senate already auctions, they would be giving up the power to commission such research themselves, as well as stripping it from the 3 titles. Changing historical research. The Imperial Archivist has created 3 teams, one of which can undertake research. Anyone commissioning the department can specify a researcher they want to use, or leave the choice to the Imperial Archivist. Given the reduced resources with which the department is now working, Leonatus has made some changes as to how it operates. He has selected 3 of the most keen researchers still remaining: Snowstorm Henk, Octavia of Streamsource Spire, and Marco Swarsbane. Each of them has their own speciality and heads up a small team of remaining researchers. Going forward, whenever anyone commissions historical research, they will be able to request that one of the 3 researchers takes charge of the project. If they don't have a preference, the Imperial Archivist will assign the one that they think best suits the proposal. The fucking Whisper Gallery. Riz, an Orc thief taker, has a plan to resolve the Whisper Gallery problem. They will not stop. This isn't about me being angry that they butchered a bunch of my friends. This is about the fact that they will not stop because they cannot stop. If we want them to stop, we are going to have to make them stop, preferably with hammers. You can't talk a rabid dog out of biting, as they say in here. Imperial Archivist. At one point, the Department for Historical Research could handle 5 historical research requests each season. Those days are long gone, in part thanks to the depredations of the Whisper Gallery. The Eternals view secrets as their purview, and resent the fact that the department insists not only on investigating matters they would rather see untouched, but publishing those results publicly. A number of veteran civil servants died, before the Senate provided funds to pay for bodyguards for everyone attached to the department. While there were some proposals made in 382YE to try and reduce the threat of mortal agents of the Whisper Gallery, they're likely to only have temporary impact. The Whisper Gallery is just too efficient at recruiting agents, as they bragged about during the recent parley with the Archmage of Night. Diplomacy will not work, as has been demonstrated both by the most recent parley and the parley before it, and most likely the parley before that. One of the bodyguards paid for by the Senate, an Orc thief taker called Steel Fist Riz, has come up with a proposal to fix the problem for good. The Eternals primarily work through mortal agents, being barred from sending heralds to the Empire by enmity of the Conclave. They have made it clear they consider every Imperial scholar and place of study to be fair game. So rather than passively protect the civil servants, he proposes to engage the Whisper Gallery on their own terms. The civil service have secured the support of several wealthy Highborn chapters, Urizen spires, Perushkan Kabbalist circles, and places of learning. A fund has been established, sufficient to pay a number of Imperial heroes to not only protect the learned and the places they frequent, but also to actively seek out and deal with threats before they manifest. It is legal to kill monsters and heralds associated with the Whisper Gallery under Imperial law. Dealing with mortal agents requires more restraint, but a thief-taker like Riz is experienced at working with the magistrates and the militia to apprehend anyone who deals with the Night Eternals, which is of course illegal, while they are under enmity. In return, the wealthy patrons concerned about the threat to Imperial scholarship will provide payment to those mercenary heroes without needing to drain the Imperial treasury any further. Not only would the civil servants at the department be safe, but Leonatus believes the ability of the Whisper Gallery to hurt anyone would be dramatically reduced, meaning no more attacks on the Minister of Historical Research, the Imperial Advisor for the Feni, the Seer of the Gateway, the Imperial Seer, the Advisor on the Valorn, the Leopardian Librarian, or the Anvil Library. At least, no more casual attacks. The Whisper Gallery may be able to suborn agents, but their ability to send assassins after people at Anvil would be curtailed. Out of character note, we will no longer be running plots in which members of the NPC crew hunt down the enemies of the Whisper Gallery on the field. Instead, we will focus our efforts on recruiting PC agents and getting them to do the Eternals' dirty work. The 22 thrones the Senate have been paying each season is no longer required. The Imperial Archivist thanks them for their support over the last several years, but now that the problem is larger than just one civil service department, it falls to the scholars to start protecting themselves. Shadow War. A new adventure is available to military units to stymie the Whisper Gallery and protect scholars and places of learning. A new adventure for military units has been created called Shadow War. It can be found in the Scout and Area drop-down in downtime. Any military unit that takes part in this adventure is considered to be either guarding scholars, both those of the Historical Research Department and those at centres of learning threatened by the Whisper Gallery across the Empire, or else actively working to uncover and stymie the schemes of the Eternals, mortal allies, and twisted heralds. The ritual enchantments that help militaries support a spy network apply to this adventure because it relies on stealth and cunning as much as bodyguarding acumen. In place of their normal production, a standard military unit that undertakes this adventure will receive 120 rings and 2 crystal mana, with an enchanted or upgraded military unit receiving commensurately more. All of this assumes that the Imperial Conclave continues to uphold their stance that the Whisper Gallery are enemies of the Empire. If that changed, the situation would quickly escalate, and this adventure would no longer be enough to protect people by itself. Participation. Mortal agents of the Whisper Gallery have been targeting scholars and librarians across the Empire. If you are one of the people the Whisper Gallery has targeted, any of those listed above, or anyone who works at the Anvil Library, you are free to roleplay that you have been targeted by mortal agents of the Whisper Gallery between events. Some of these agents would be lone assassins, masked of course, who use daggers, crossbows, or poison to try and murder you. You are encouraged to explain how you managed to survive without the protection of the bodyguards employed to support the civil service. Some of these assassins are magicians who seek to deliver the pernicious curse favoured by the Whisper Gallery that removes the ability to read and write from its victims. In this case, you may email plot@profounddecisions.co.uk and we'll arrange for you to receive that curse. Be aware that it is both a long-lasting and extremely difficult to remove curse. The option is intended for Imperial title holders mentioned, for anyone who is the formal proxy of one of those titles at the last event, and for anyone who volunteers at the Anvil Library during events. Please don't email in if you are not one of those people.